The art of screenwriting is the art of visual storytelling. It's writing screenplays, scripts for mass media such as feature films, TV shows, video games, commercials, but mostly commercial, promotional, or marketing writing is called copywriter. But if you ask me, you can train yourself to write anything if you train yourself to write screenplays. Side note here, when you become a screenwriter, you usually work as a freelancer, so project to project or a gig to gig. The art of screenwriting is very systematic, formatting heavy. It's one of the interesting art forms that's not done for the audience, meaning the mass audience won't consume the screenplay by reading it as a form of art. Screenplays are consumed and read by producers, agents, managers, their assistants, their interns, directors, actors, or other artists in the industry. One of our professors in my MFA in screenwriting told us that a screenplay is an invitation to collaborate. That really stuck with me throughout the years because it's rare to see an art form that's made for other artists as an invitation to make something together rather than making an art for the mass audience. It's almost like a songwriter reaching out to the musician. Right. I've been a screenwriter based in Los Angeles for almost 6 years now and did my MFA in screenwriting at the Heart of Hollywood. My professors and mentors were writers from Batwoman, X-Men, Kim Possible, etc. And I've learned a lot about the art of screenwriting throughout the years by working for many producers, directors, and co-writers who hired me to write and rewrite their projects. In today's episode, we will talk about the elements of screenwriting, as well as the elements of the storytelling of a screenplay, from characters to plot, style to tone, and more. 1. Formatting. Formatting happens to be one of the most important elements of a screenplay. It's important to know the formatting before you start writing, because when an executive looks at your script, you don't want them to go like, brother, do you know that's TikTok sound? But seriously, that really is the reaction. It's internal ew to the screenplay, which even I had sometimes with my newer clients, because it's really important. Because your screenplay won't even make it that far to a producer's desk without proper formatting. Let's look at this one example from one of my scripts. We can see the scene heading, interior or exterior, location, dash, day or night. This is to set up the setting. That sounds funny, but this is to set up the location, setting, and time of the scene. So in a novel or a book, you describe the location for pages. Here, you just write it like this, scene heading. If you want to describe it a little, you have to do it in scene descriptions. These are also called action lines. But too many descriptions will distract your readers and make them bored already on page 1, so don't go overboard with descriptions. Describe only as much as is necessary for the reader to understand the story. If there's an object or a design that's going to keep coming back, or it's important for the story, focus on that when you're using scene descriptions. In contrast to book writing, you have to be very minimalistic with your words and descriptions in a screenplay. These action lines and scene descriptions focus on what the audience will see on the screen. So if I were to write what I'm seeing in this video, the YouTube video, if you're watching it on YouTube, I would say Seda sits by a blue light, posters behind her, right? That's the setting, that's the scene description and the action line. So we won't be hearing the main character's thoughts or anything like that. I'm saying that because I had a lot of clients who were mainly book writers, and it was really difficult to explain to them what scene descriptions were. They would describe for pages and pages and write things that we don't have to know, and write the main character's thoughts. If you want to write main character's thoughts, that's a voiceover, and we'll talk about that later. Scene descriptions are only there for you to explain to us what we're looking at on a movie or a TV screen. A character grabs a water bottle. A character climbs down the stairs. A character yells at someone. That was a trick. A character yelling at someone is not a scene description. That's a dialogue. A character walks down the street. A character grabs a cup of coffee, and thanks the barista. Ooh, that's a trick too. Thanking the barista needs to be a dialogue. Unless you're making that scene a silent one, if we're not hearing any dialogues, then you can specify that in the scene descriptions and then write it in that way. Now let's look at the scene descriptions here. Interior therapist's office day, the scene heading. Then scene description goes, a bright minimalistic green room with 2 floral chairs near the window and 1 large couch. That's a visual image description. A stuffed bunny toy sits on the wooden coffee table near a big sand clock. Again, visual descriptions, but I wrote the object, a stuffed bunny toy, in capital letters because that's an object that will come back. It's of importance to the story. Specifically, it's a plant and payoff. If you don't know what that is and you want to learn screenwriting thoroughly for absolutely free, please make sure to follow me, subscribe, like this video, turn on the notification bell. I will definitely be talking about every single thing we talk about in this episode in a more expansive way in the upcoming episode. So let's continue. Sarah, 22, fidgets with her finger in front of Lily, 30, her friendly and serious therapist/hypnotherapist. Now, here's another rule. If we are meeting the characters for the first time, we need to write their names in capital letters. And age is important to specify for casting purposes. Some people would also specify race, ethnicity, looks, and things like that. But for me, I personally don't care unless it's an important part of the story, unless it adds something to the story. Another scene description here. Sarah doesn't answer and doesn't look up, still fidgeting with her fingers. Lily points at the stuffed bunny toy. You can see that these are actionable action lines or scene descriptions. I'm not saying Sarah is not answering. She's fidgeting with her fingers. Lily is pointing to a toy. Or I'm not saying Sarah didn't answer. Sarah was fidgeting with her fingers. Those are the wrong tenses to use in a screenplay. The universally accepted one, at least in Hollywood, is present tense. Sarah fidgets, Lily points, a character sings, a character dances, plays, walks, runs, rushes, etc. My interpretation as to why we use present tense and why the industry is strict about it is, one, it's because everything happens on the screen. Did you hear that? Like, happens. It happens on the screen as we watch it. It's present tense because it's logical. We watch it as things happen. The second reason is it's because it's more actionable. It's more active. Character runs. Character is running. It's just too many words. Again, they really want to keep it short on a screenplay. Very minimal. If I have learned anything throughout the years as a screenwriter, it's that the art of screenwriting is the art of minimal writing. We are writing a huge story with crazy world building, actions, romance, all these types of things, but we have to do it using minimal number of words. People who read the screenplay, they really don't want to waste time reading unnecessary details. This is very important. I also met and got hired by a lot of book writers writing the backstory of the characters in a scene description. That's a no-no. Your screenplay won't get anywhere if you do that. Ask yourself this question: how will the audience know the backstory on a screen unless they, read the screenplay for it? How will they know it by just watching it on the screen? Is it told through the dialogues? No? Then how do we know it? You cannot write the backstory and connection of two characters in scene descriptions. Let's look here. Lily and Sarah. They've been therapist and client for over a year, but throughout the screenplay, you will never see that being mentioned, even in dialogue or scene description for that matter. That's for me to know when I'm writing these characters and the dialogues and how they engage with each other. You know why the audience doesn't have to know? Because them being therapist and client for over a year doesn't add anything extra to the plot. So there's absolutely no need to mention it. Anyway, let's discuss the formatting of characters, dialogue, and parentheticals. And again, in other episodes, we will focus on these formatting elements one by one in a much more detailed way. As you can see here, after scene descriptions, there are character names and dialogues. I also had some newer writer clients who were formatting their scripts on a Word document. You can do that if you're not sure whether you want to commit to this screenwriting career choice or not. But if you're ready, get yourself the Final Draft software. Or lately, I've been using ART Studio and I love it. I actually think ART Studio might take over and replace Final Draft in the future. It does have some years to get there, but ART Studio is like the Gen Z version of Final Draft, and it's much more detailed. Like, you can put the beats, and from the beat you can write the script like very easily, instead of copy pasting it from a Google Doc or a Word document and writing it beat by beat. I hope that makes sense. But get one of those so you can actually write your script without having to format every single thing manually. So let's read the dialogues here. Lily: how are you feeling, Sarah? Sarah: nervous. Lily: why? Sarah: I don't know. You asked me to bring my favorite toy when I was a kid, so I had to go back to my, Lily: your old house, your family? As you can see, the dialogue formatting is like this. If you're not watching the video, you can find the video version of this podcast on YouTube. Now, when it comes to parentheticals, let's look at this example. Sarah, parenthetical, panics. A parenthetical is used to describe how a specific dialogue will be said by the actor. But the thing is, just as all the other elements of a screenplay, we have to be careful with this because we don't want to over-direct the actors. Having a parenthetical on every single page or every single dialogue is not useful at all. So we use parentheticals only when it's absolutely necessary. You can also see V.O. right next to the character name. That's voiceover, so that's not a parenthetical. And the way to format it is literally next to the character name. So be careful not to mix it up with a parenthetical. That's just voiceover. Sometimes it can also be off screen, which is written as O.S. If you hear a dialogue like off screen, the character is not in the screen, you can use that. And here's an example. Pause if you want to read the dialogues or take a screenshot to analyze it later. There are also many other formatting elements, such as how to format a montage scene, the transitions, or the title page, of course. But if you have a Final Draft, the title page is already ready to fill out for you. But we will talk about montage and transitions in a later episode. The second part of this episode is about the storytelling of a screenplay. Just as with any other storytelling, there is a beginning, middle, and end of a story on screen. Specifically, there are acts and plot points. When it comes to the plots and acts of a screenplay, there are many different approaches. From Blake Snyder's Beat Sheet, Save the Cat, or Hero's Journey, 3-act structure, or one of my Hollywood mentors had a 4-act structure. I want to talk about all that in different episodes. I do have a 3-act structure video if you want to check it out, but we will focus on these, one per episodes. For this one, let's look at the main plot points of a screenplay that are very, very important. And these plot points are something that all these approaches seem to agree on. There is inciting incident, also known as catalyst. There is crossing the threshold or breaking into two. I personally call it the decision moment. There is the midpoint, and then the lowest moment or all is lost moment, and climax and resolution moments. Inciting incident, call to action, or catalyst. A screenplay story will always have an inciting incident or a catalyst that kickstarts the character's journey. When you look at movies or shows, we always have a character in their ordinary life at the very beginning. Whatever they're doing with their lives, working, taking care of their kids, finishing college, etc. But then suddenly, something out of the ordinary happens, like something drops like a bomb into their lives. That's the inciting incident or catalyst of the story, or also called call to action. In the Fall Guy movie, for example, there are actually 2 inciting incidents. Sometimes there is 2, and it's okay. The first one is him breaking his back. So he quits his job and the romance storyline in his life comes to an end. Then the second one, the actual one that kickstarts the entire story for Act 2, is when he's called on set, where his love interest is the director. In Vampire Diaries, Elena, the main character, is going through grief and heartbreak after losing her parents, But then comes along the Vampire Brothers, right? That's literally the pilot inciting incident. In Manifest, the TV show, we see the ordinary life of the family as they wait for the plane to go back home after vacation. But then 3 of the family members take a later flight that goes missing and lands 5 years later. Their family has moved on. They've been presumed dead for 5 years. That's the inciting incident. That's literally the entire teaser, by the way. In a TV show, usually the teaser kind of tells you the inciting incident so you can get the audience interested, intrigued, and excited. So it's like the Kickstarter of the core story. The decision moment, as I call it, known as the threshold or crossing the threshold in Hero's Journey, or it's the break into 2 in Blake Snyder's Beat Sheet, the book Save the Cat. This is the moment that comes after the inciting incident. A character has to accept the call to action, but at first, there's always some denial or they decline it. So there's this debate of whether to accept this call to action or not. And the moment they decide to accept the call to action, we get into Act 2, which is why Blake Snyder calls it Break into Act 2. Or break into 2. In the Fall Guy movie, when he's called to set again by this producer, right, he debates it. He doesn't really want to go until they make him think that his love interest wants him there. Then he drops everything and takes the flight. Midpoint. Midpoint is a critical turning point in the movie. If you pay attention, the movie takes an unexpected turn right in the middle of the movie. So if it's a 2-hour movie, it happens right in the middle at the 1-hour mark. Midpoint can be a twist, a big revelation about what really is going on. It might be the moment where one of the main characters or a loved one of the main character gets captured by the antagonist. So now the stakes are getting higher. The movie is becoming more serious. Now, I don't remember the exact midpoint of the Fall Guy movie. I have to watch it one more time and actually focus on analyzing it. I mostly just enjoyed it when I watched it the first time. But if I were to guess right now, I'd say midpoint might be the moment when he sees a dead body in this hotel room, right? That's when we realize that there's something serious going on. It's not just fun and games, it's something much bigger, and we all can feel the tension. The lowest moment, or Blake Snyder calls it, all is lost. This happens at the end of Act 2. If you're using the 3-act structure, it's right before the climax, when we feel like the character has lost it, lost the entire battle, couldn't reach their goal, they have lost everything. And this is the moment where we feel hopeless. We might cry. In romance movies, it's usually the moment where our couple breaks up. It feels like the end of it, right? And in the Fall Guy movie, our main character is literally in the hands of the antagonist. He's about to die and there seems to be no out of the situation. He's tied to a chair by this body of the water and they're about to burn him alive. It's funny because the Fall Guy movie had this moment right before the lowest moment. That moment right before the lowest moment is called Bad Guys Close In, according to Blake Snyder's Beat Sheet. And right before the main character gets caught by this antagonist, the bad guys are literally closing in on them. And the main character shouts, "Bad guys close in." That was a very funny moment if you're a screenwriter or in the filmmaking industry and know what that is all about. And lastly, let's talk about climax and resolution. This is all Act 3 and comes after the lowest moment. Main character usually finds a way out of the lowest moment, even though it seems like there is no out, and they fight the bad guys. That's the climax of the movie, the final battle between the protagonist and the antagonist. And the resolution is the resolution of the story. The Fall Guy movie, when they finally catch the bad guys and the main character gets a kiss from the girl, that's the resolution. Now, other elements of screenwriting. There are many other elements in screenwriting and storytelling that we use, and I really want to take the time to talk about them separately in other videos, as I said. But in general, team is very important. A theme is the message of the story, a message you want to tell to the audience. So think about, what do you want to say to the audience? Why are you writing this story? The message or theme can be grief, love, loss, war, sexism, racism, anything really. And there can also be side themes that come with like subplots. But the central theme should be the main focus, and you really need to figure it out before writing your story. There are some genre elements that are really, really important to me. These are tone and style. I want to emphasize the importance of tone and style. This is something I'm still learning, but the tone and style make a huge difference when you like get your script in front of a producer. These executives and producers read a ton of scripts every day. Let's say you're writing a horror movie. If the style and tone of your scene descriptions and dialogues don't give them the chills, then why would they want to buy your script? I hope that makes sense. So that's really important. Keeping the tone and style intact and in a way that it reflects the genre. It really will separate you from other writers. There's also the other story elements that I really love. These are the ticking clock, MacGuffin, Chekhov's gun, foreshadowing, plant and payoff, which I mentioned at the beginning, by the way. So if you remember the stuffed bunny toy, that's plant and payoff. Ticking clock is when we literally have a ticking clock, like a ticking bomb or a limited time to achieve our goal. I remember so many action movies where there are literal ticking clocks on bombs, and the main character's loved one are tied like right next to the bomb. So stakes are higher automatically. Another example is the movie Inception. The characters have limited time within the dream to accomplish their mission before waking up. Ticking clock is very important to keep the audience at the edge of their seats and grab their attention and basically never let it go. Another thing that is very important to me is MacGuffin. This is a plot device that drives the story forward. It's usually an object, event, or a person. Everyone is interested in this person or in this object. It might be unimportant to the plot, but everyone is after them. Some of these movies use these like one hostage, a big guy like maybe the president or someone is a hostage. So everyone is after this person. Maybe the overall plot is not about this person, but they use this person as a MacGuffin. Another example is we kept reading my film at the beginning when I was talking about formatting. I wrote the bunny plush toy or stuffed bunny toy. It was in capital letters. That's literally the MacGuffin of the entire script. The parents are after it. The therapist is after it. The main character, Sarah, is after it. So that's a MacGuffin. Another example is in Indiana Jones movies. There's always a MacGuffin object that everyone wants. Next, Chekhov's gun. If a gun is shown in the first act, it should be fired by the third act. That's literally what it means. So Chekhov's gun basically says what we've been saying since the beginning of this episode. If you show something to the audience, you have to use it. It has to have a meaning. You can't just show it to show it. It's like book writing, right? Like I've been reading a lot of fiction books, like 700 pages long, and it's great. It's really amazing. But damn, like they really just keep saying stuff that is not important to the story at all. It's great to take us into the story world, but I don't know, for pages and pages, it just goes on and on and on. You really cannot do that. You can't just show things to show it. So there is a backstory between two characters, for example. You want to reveal it so badly in a script. You should do it if it really is necessary, if it's like the backbone of the story, it's like it's crucial for the audience to know it. If there is a picture on the wall, let's say, and you wrote it in scene descriptions, then that picture needs to fall down and break during the climax. There's also subplot, a B plot that runs parallel to the main story. There also can be like B, C, D, E storylines. Subplots can really provide depth and complexity to the story. They can explore your sub-themes, as we talked about, your side themes, and other character arcs that are not fully covered in the A storyline. Blake Snyder literally has B story in his beat sheet. It begins right at the beginning of Act 2, so right after Break Into 2, and he calls this the romance subplot. Now next is Plant and Payoff, introducing a detail early on that seems insignificant at the time, but becomes important later. The plan sets up the payoff. When it's relevant, it's revealed, right? Like Chekhov's gun. If you're showing a gun at the beginning, then that's a plant. And when you fire it in third act, that's a payoff. There's also flashback and flash forward scenes. These take us back in time or forward in time. Flashbacks provide background information. Maybe an inciting incident, number one, maybe might have happened 3 years ago. For example, I guess Elena losing her parents in Vampire Diaries. The flashback of that is a flashback. And flash forwards show events that will happen in the future, often creating this dramatic irony. That's when we also say cut to. Between screenwriters, we sometimes make this fun, oh, I'm gonna finish my feature film in 30 days, cut to. And automatically, a screenwriter in front of me would understand cut to, I totally did not finish that. So it's irony, right? Flash forward, dramatic irony. Again, if you do use flashback or flash forward, you have to make sure it's for a reason. It really cannot be for no reason at all. I've read so many TV pilot scripts and feature film scripts, and I have to write coverage for the producers, right? So automatically, if there's a flashback or a flash forward for no reason, I know that story, that movie is not gonna work out. Always remember Chekhov's gun. If you're showing the gun, it better be useful. The next is cliffhanger, a story device used to leave a character in this unknown, uncertain, difficult situation at the end of a scene, at the end of an act or episode of a TV show. You basically compel the audience to stay and continue watching or continue reading to find out what's gonna happen next. Next is a reversal, a sudden change in the direction of the story. Something insane is revealed, the character's goal is changed. It's a total reversal. I personally use this in the midpoint. Usually, the reversal is really good in midpoints to keep the audience at the edge of their seats. But like The Fall Guy, suddenly it's about the death of someone. It's about a murder. When that dead body is revealed in the bathtub, you realize, oh, things are gonna get serious. Like fun and games, as Blake Snyder says, fun and games is over. Now we're getting into something very deep, like deep shit. That's just my approach to use the reversal, usually in midpoints. It really can be used anywhere, probably. Some screenwriters use reversal toward the end of a screenplay, for example. That way they really hit the audience at the end and make the movie or the TV show very memorable. Another thing I and many other screenwriters sometimes use in the midpoint is false victory or false defeat. Moments when it appears that the protagonist has won or lost. It's a false win or a false loss. So the true outcome will be revealed later, but we think everything is gone, right? Even false defeat or false loss can be the lowest moment because we really think this is the end for the protagonist, but it really is not. So this keeps the audience emotionally invested and at the edge of their seats, wondering what's gonna happen. Oh my god, did they really lose? Oh my god, are they really gonna die? What the heck? So they're gonna be uncertain about the final resolution. And I love those movies where they keep putting in like false defeat, false defeat, false defeat, and then you think that the character is definitely gonna win, like they're definitely gonna live, right? Like you're like, oh, they're doing these false defeats. Like as a screenwriter, I approach it as this is definitely gonna end with a happy ending. But then suddenly the character actually dies in the climax. And you're like, I kind of love those types of movies. It puts an end to the entire story. It's like a slap in the face. So that's it for today's episode. I really hope this was helpful to see the reality of writing a screenplay. The art of screenwriting, it's the structure, plot, formatting, and story elements. These are very, very crucial to making sure your story is exciting and intriguing and resonates with the executives, the producer, actors, and directors that you're pitching it to, or the other artists involved. So they want to make your film or show. You have to really make sure you're using these story tools and story elements and methods in your favor. Thank you for listening and see you next time.